Welcome back to round one of the LEC Spring Playoffs. SK got off to a great start with a comeback win, and we'll see if Splyce can bounce back here in game two. And they need to bounce back because they were very much in control of that game.
That's what I felt. I felt like that the game was very Splyce favored for the majority of it. I really liked how Xerxes played this game. So that Duke mentioned that Xerxes was a little underappreciated relative to Selfmade, and that Selfmade was kind of put on this pedestal. But I do feel that Xerxes demonstrated this game. Not only does he still have his cool creative picks, but he's also willing to play them very well. And I felt like that his performance overall in this game was very, very solid.
Yeah, I mean, at one point he was 7-1, right? Pumping out tons of damage in these team fights. And it sort of raises the question, right? When you look at Splyce, they lost that game, but yes, they were in so much control. Do you make changes coming into this draft? And I'm of the opinion that they don't necessarily need to, because that was a very winnable game for them.
Yeah, and Splyce are still on the red side. They can still take the same approach. I personally wasn't a massive fan of the Gangplank pick. I don't think it's great for the match. Maybe early levels, you can gain some advantages, but I don't think it's a very effective lane that you can play around, nor do I think it can match scaling. And I felt in this game, we didn't really see much impact from Vizicachi on the champion either. And it didn't surprise me that they even chose to ban away the cannon on their own side, because that's one of the big picks I think can do very well into it.
Yeah, denying it from him, maybe a little bit of a head scratcher here, but as we get into this draft, the question is, again, will we see changes from the side of Splyce? There were some, uncertainties around the Morgana in the mid lane as well. It did certainly neutralize that mid lane matchup, but post 25-30 minutes did not have too much impact in the game, especially in terms of damage. So if Splyce are going to be making changes here, we look towards the solo lanes, I would say.
Yes, we certainly will. Now, in game one, SK banned away the Ryze, the Sivir, and the Karthus, whereas Splyce banned away Sylas, Lissandra, and the Rek'Sai. So far, we're sticking to the same ban path, and again, both teams are probably thinking, well, we were really happy with how our drafts went. Like, SK won the game, Splyce ended up having good control of the early, so like both teams are probably thinking, we can just stick with the same ban.
And I feel like we see this a lot, especially in best of fives, where you have 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You should be confident with the draft you have coming into this match. So yes, some mistakes were made. Why not run it back? You go back to the room in between games, figure out what went wrong. And for SK, instead of banning the Sivir, they elect to remove the Morgana.
As Splyce decided to remove the LeBlanc away from SK. We did see that first pick last time, but now it's going to be the Rek'Sai straight away for Selfmade in the jungle.
That is a dangerous thing to do here if you are Splyce. I mean, yes, Pyrian's LeBlanc was strong in that last game, but Selfmade, while he doesn't play the Rek'Sai a ton, he's only played it a few times so far this split, he absolutely trashes teams in the early game on this pick.
And we're seeing that Splyce have a very high value on this Xayah pick. You would expect the Rakan to be equally valued, but what surprised me here is that Splyce immediately answering with a Skarner pick of their own. And you are a massive Rek'Sai player. I know you love the champion, you're very familiar with it. How do you feel about this matchup?
I actually really like it, because I think that Skarner doesn't have the hugest impact early on in the game.
Even with the changes to the Spires?
Even with the changes to the Spires. So if you look at it, Rek'Sai ideally shouldn't be dueling the Skarner at any point in the game, especially on his Spires. That's going to be dangerous. But Skarner's a slower scaling champion where you go for the Predator, you look for the level 6, ultimates at that point become very strong, but Rek'Sai can have a big impact post level 3 through level 6, where Skarner can't do the same.
And SK have the options to pick some of these safer champions into the Skarner as well. Things like the Tarm Kench, you can just gobble up anyone that's been impaled. Things with a little bit more safety, like maybe the Ezreal coming out as well in a little bit. Here it's going to be the Zoe for Pyrian in the mid lane as their final pick in phase 1.
And Zoe Rek'Sai is a deadly mid lane jungle 2v2. You land the bubble that gives time for the Rek'Sai to burrow on over, get the knock up and the kill. So definitely going to be looking at those two players once again, now that they're not going to be up against a Morgana in the mid lane to try to play through that central area of the map.
And when I was looking at this Zoe pick, I was thinking, really dangerous to just blind pick it. There are many champions that do very well into her, but what it meant is that Splyce had a choice. You either guarantee your strong 2v2 with the Rakan, or you pick a counter pick. Either way, we're going to just ban the opposite. So if you then pick a mid laner, we're just going to take away your Rakan and probably another support to limit your options. But instead, they valued the Rakan, so now we're seeing these mid lane bans come out from the side of SK.
And there were already so many mid lane bans just from the side of Splyce in the first ban phase that now there's not a ton of options here for Humanoid. You look at picks maybe like an Orianna if you want to be a little bit safer in that mid lane matchup as being the next best thing here for Humanoid.
Looks like they're keeping that mid laner under wraps for the moment. The cannon pick comes out from Splyce. We do see the Jinx and the Ezreal ban away from Splyce as well, meaning that we'll see Crownshot fall down his AD carry tier list. Things like maybe the Kai'Sa, the Lucian, the Tristana are still options for him.
Now, if this Ashe does get locked in for Crownshot, not only do I really like the pick, but we're more than likely going to see Whirlib on a counter pick to the Kennen and something that can side lane very strongly. Because if you can just sort of poach up, put the Tahm Kench and the Ashe in the mid lane and impact those side lanes to create so much pressure to collapse on a side where Whirlib is looking for the duels against the Kennen.
Now, we talked about Kennen being good into Hecarim. I think one of the reasons why they picked it was to dissuade SK from going for it. And one of the picks I was thinking of is a Vladimir, but instead they're going for the Karma. And I believe this is something they ran during the regular season to a pretty effective manner.
Yep.
And now it's very much around playing around the Ashe, giving that extra bit of utility and safety. And I'm sure, as many Skarners are familiar with, anything that has kite makes playing Skarner that much harder.
Yeah, so it definitely doesn't go into that side lane idea that I was thinking SK were going to go, but for the comp, it does give them some strong tools, as you said, to get away from the Skarner. But ultimately, what the Karma top lane ends up being is a strong laning champion that does not scale ultra well. She doesn't push out the damage, so think of her like the mid lane Morgana, where you're ultimately going to be there for your AD carry later on in the game, where SK are putting a lot of faith in Crownshot to carry.
What I also like about SK's composition is there's a lot of pick power, but I don't know how strong the team fighting is. I think it's very strong on like one item, like early to mid game, it's very prevalent. I think that it gets a little harder to execute as the game progresses, as Rek'Sai is much harder to play. Zoe's definitely going to get stronger. Like, I guess the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it kind of has a mix mash of everything. There's a lot in this SK comp.
They do not have a very good front to back, and I think looking at these comps, post 30 minutes, unless SK have a ludicrous lead, I don't think they win a fight, because Splyce went full on scaling. They have the Azir as well as the Xayah, and
Splyce comp is very obvious.
It's totally obvious. You're going to be looking for these team fights, whereas Selfmade is going to have to snowball this early game for SK.
Yeah, and on the Rek'Sai, he does have the potential to do that. The question is, which lane will he look to play around? Will it be towards the bot side of the map, or will it be in the mid lane?
To get more insight on this draft, though, we're going to head on over to Law and SK's coach.
SK looked well prepared against Splyce during game one, but we noticed some shaky moments. So what do you guys need to adjust for the rest of the series?
I mean, we've got some rookies on the team, so obviously it's kind of expected. First playoffs in LEC. It's kind of a big moment for them, so we just told everyone to relax. Remember the fundamentals. We saw a lot of things that Splyce did well, and also things that they didn't do very well. So we're going to try to exploit that to win the series.
Relax, play the game. Thank you.
Pretty much, yeah. Just play the game that we've been playing for years now, pretty much.
Well, good luck on this one. Back to you guys on the desk.
Great to hear from Broken Shard. Good insight, showcasing that the rookies perhaps not performing their best, but I still think that you look at Crownshot, you look at Selfmade, still very solid games in game one. Now, we're seeing, once again, Splyce set up this sneaky level 1, Norscarin over the wall. They have no idea the Crownshot's there, but he's going to get picked off.
Knocked up straight away, going to flash across the wall, and that is the summoner burnt on the Ashe very early on.
Very important summoner to burn there, of course. Going to be laning alongside the Tahm Kench, so has the added safety, but it's going to mean that Kabi and Norscarin are going to have a much easier time getting priority in bot.
They certainly are. Now, SK, they're trying to answer. They've grouped up as 3 in the top side, and they want to see where Xerxes is starting. So they've put Vision Ward on his red buff, and I don't think they're going to try and steal it away. It's just for that extra bit of information. Now, and I am a big fan of Hail of Blades Rek'Sai. I feel like on the broadcast I talk about it a lot. I feel like I'm a big proponent, but I know that recently you've become a big fan. Can you tell me why you like it so much?
Well, Hail of Blades Rek'Sai is just so strong in the early game and plays in exactly to the way that Selfmade and SK want to play this game. And the real reason why it is so strong is because having the rapid-fire auto attacks means that Rek'Sai can build up full fury immediately upon on-burrowing on top of an enemy. So what you do is you look for a gank post level 3, your burrowed Q, the Prey Seeker, your knock-up combined give you 50 fury, then you get 2 rapid-fire auto attacks from the Hail Blades into the E true damage, which does tons of burst, especially later on into the game. So Selfmade just has so many playmaking tools early in the game, and I do want to point out this pathing from him as well, because we saw this first from Cold, I believe, from Origin, where you start by yourself on the Wolves, go immediately into red, and then Krugs. That gives you the fastest level 3 in the game possible, and means you can gank bot lane at a really weird timer, because usually you don't see players going for this type of pathing. Can maybe try to exploit the bot side of the map.
I have to see, we'll use the smite to heal up just a little bit and then get the knockup back onto the Krugs. But with Crownshot not having his flash, you wonder if this is more just about stopping a gank coming out from Xerxes than Selfmade looking for a gank himself.
Yeah, it's hard because you see Ashe, Tahm Kench, it's not a ton of setup here for the Rek'Sai, so ultimately he won't make that play, but the option is there, and that's what Selfmade is going to be constantly searching for throughout the first 2 minutes of this game.
So while you got to talk about junglers, I now want to talk about mid lane.
Go for it.
That's allowed. That's allowed.
Because I see this comment on Azir, and I always love looking at Azir players because there are so many different rune choices that you have, and one of the ones I'm a big fan of is things like Lethal Tempo. I think it really adds to the scaling value, but if you're going for Comet, it's much more about poke, and it can be quite valuable in lane where you can get a decent amount of harassment off, but the fact that he's not going for... Remember that Humanoid is a big Azir player. Apparently, he used to be an Azir one-trick and is by far his favorite champion. And picking it into the Zoe, one of the advantages that Azir often has is that he can be very obnoxious in terms of his poke, and he can often outrange a lot of opponents. But Zoe doesn't really struggle with that. Because of her Q, she can farm very safely. And so early levels, she's just going to keep pushing and force this Azir to just farm underneath this tower and be in this awkward situation where Humanoid can't really generate much pressure. And the reason why that's important is because it gives Selfmade the option to invade the enemy jungle and look for steals.
And this is the Selfmade special as well. Getting into the enemy Krug camp, just stealing it away as much as he can. Xerxes meets him there, but Selfmade will get the extra experience from the big Krugs, and it means that he is now a level 4. SK almost catch out the Splyce bot lane, just backing away down towards that bottom side. Kobe actually running the heal this game instead of the teleport.
Yeah, and that's something you see in maybe some easier matchups down here on the bottom side when they specifically want to play for bot lane more, because I think that Splyce have really good options for finding engagements down here on the bottom side of the map. Post level 6 for Xerxes especially, he can use the Predator boots to lock down a player like Dreams, because of course he can eat Crown Shot, get Dreams the Tahm Kench, focus them down and get the kill.
And the reason why also the heal is important towards the bot side of the map is you'll notice that they've just gone back to base. And you might be wondering, why would they do that? Because they're going up against a teleport. If you stay in lane, it's very easy for Crown Shot to go back home, buy, and then teleport back into lane. Now he has an item advantage, and Splyce wanted to avoid that. So they wanted to just grab this quick couple of items early on, and now they feel a little bit happier.
And I think perhaps a mistake from Crown Shot as well was hard pushing that wave after they saw Kabe reset, because Kabe still got down into this bottom lane fairly quickly and was able to pick up the minions. He wasn't denied many underneath his tower, and it is going to eventually be slow pushing back in towards the side of SK, but it meant that Crown Shot couldn't TP back to lane and get any advantage from the summoner.
Yeah, and if you're a Splyce fan, you will be looking to Kobe as a key member to carry this game for the team. They've got him on the Xayah once again. This has kind of been his real breakout split, although he's been in the LCS and the LEC for so long. This has probably been the best split Kobe has had as an AD carry in the LEC. He's the All-Pro AD carry, he's topped the charts, and he has been so consistent in getting this team to the late game and then being able to carry them in team fights.
See, it's always a fascinating discussion to have because...
He was spotted,
I think he was definitely spotted. You can see the pings. Skarner's also hanging around in the Tri-Brush. Selfmade level 5 though already.
Pyrion on his way down as well through the river, but they do know he's there.
Yes.
So they shouldn't be overly aggressive in this bottom lane.
But to go back to the Kobe point, he is a player I think has actually always been very good, but I think that this split he's just been able to have a lot more carry performance in his standout. And I think that to many fans, he's just been a lot more noticeable as a player, but you speak to pros and they've often considered Kobe to be a very talented player, and he's often very good. So I think that it's just one of those times where more people are finally starting to acknowledge the skill.
Sometimes you just need the right spotlight to really shine on you, and that seems to be what's happened for Kobe. You can see All-Pro first team. Norscarin, his support has really stepped up with him as well, and a lot of people I think were a little bit dismayed that Norscarin didn't make any of our All-Pro teams after having such a strong performance in 2018 and a pretty good split this split as well.
It's tough competition though when you think of the likes of Mickey, Mithy stepping up, Hillisang as well, and it's definitely been an interesting split for bot lanes here in Europe. Meanwhile, though, our attention gets brought back to the jungler. Now level 6. Yet to make any early game ganks happen, Ender, but still generating a lot of pressure in the enemy jungle.
And yet now he is moving in towards this red buff again. He hit level 6. He has mid lane priority, top lane pushing in as well. So this is going to be an important steal away from him. Because he got the Krugs earlier, it meant he had that experience and advantage. And while he's not getting any kills, he is doing his best to build up a lead on his own.
And it's not only about getting self-made ahead, but putting Xerxes behind. You can see Xerxes still only level 5, doesn't have that impale yet, can't really influence his lanes as much as he would like. And because, as you said, of that mid lane priority, of the fact that his team can rotate quicker, Selfmade's able to take a lot away from the Skarner.
And while, yes, Selfmade is doing a lot to put himself ahead, I still think if you are an SK fan, you're wondering when does that first play happen? Because we know that Splyce are going to outscale. That's just a fact here over on the red side for them. So they are comfortable taking the slow game, making sure the kill count is even, both sides are CSing, and waiting out this SK team that needs Selfmade to find a move soon.
See, it's really interesting when we talk about scaling, because when we look at the scaling in this game, we often think about it in team fighting, but it's not like Ashe is a weak late game AD carry, right?
Sure.
You think of Zoe in the late game. Oh yes, that's definitely a scary champion, right? So in terms of scaling, we have to look at this gank.
Predator coming in, Norscarin. Jumps in, gets the impale straight onto the Tarm. Kench can't devour himself, charmed up as well. Uses the thick skin though, Selfmade on his way. Dream still alive, crown shot very low. Kobe will get the first kill, the second goes to Norscarin. Void Rush used there by Selfmade, trying to get onto the Kobe. Will get him out in response. Chachi teleports in now, and that's 3 quick kills to Splyce in the bottom lane.
Kave did not have the mana to use his ultimate, but still, it's a massive win on the side of Splyce. Xerxes hit level 6, found the play in the bottom lane, and notice, who did they engage on? It was the Tahm Kench. He flashed away early, but could not avoid the impale. Great move from Xerxes.
Pretty good stuff there from Splyce, now off to an early lead. And at the beginning of the split, we talked a lot about how Xerxes was this early game ganker. He was this guy that got a lot of leads for his laners by creating these kind of plays. And now we see him actually walk through no vision in the bot side river. Remember that SK actually were investing a lot of their vision and time towards the top side, which meant that in this 3v3 they were able to come out on top. And Rek'Sai, thanks to the heal from Corby, wasn't able to get that one-shot kill. And then with the teleport in from Chachi as well, it ends up being a very easy cleanup. And now that red buff goes over to Chachi, Whirlib forced to teleport as well. And everything looks very good for Splyce in this early game.
One really small thing I like from Splyce there as well is they had dreams, he popped the thick skin, and they immediately turned onto crown shot. They're like, we can get 2 out of this at least, so they're able just to prioritize those damaged targets and get more out of the play than if they just focus one player down. Both top bot laners come up towards the top side here because we saw the teleports used towards bot, so no real surprises there. But what you want to see now is Splyce using a little bit of this advantage to continue to eke small advantages over SK.
Well, we need to see SK maybe turn things around and not lose confidence, because it's oftentimes you'll see a play like this happen and you lose around bot side and then you slow things down. But Selfmade is not that type of player. He knows there's no summoner spells on towards Kabe. The only problem is that Xerxes is very close by.
And Norscarin has his onward back up as well.
The Zoe has been pinged out. Splyce are aware that the mid lane is roaming towards the top side, and so the bot lane of Splyce showing that respect. Ooh, the Skarner's even been pinged out as well, so good awareness from SK to acknowledge enemy jungler is around, and now everyone is up towards the top side of the map. Karma making her way up as well. SK want to secure this Rift Herald.
So notice around this Rift Herald what Pyrrhine is going to be doing with positioning. He wants to look for a long-range bubble through the wall so that if Splyce were to contest, this relatively low mobility Skarner that has to run towards you without a flash can be punished. There's
Even though he
cleanse.
was backing there, cleanse was not used by him. He does manage just to get away. That was very close. Rift Herald does go down. Chachi will answer with some plates down towards the bottom side, but Selfmade gets the Rift Herald and can use that to try and break down some of these turret plates and get a little bit of gold back into SK's pockets, because at the moment, they are 1,000 gold behind.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes off the back of those early kills, but also small advantages being built in lane, especially in the top lane and towards the duo. Now we see the jungler once again up towards the top side. He does have the Predator boots available. He's sneaking in. I don't know. Oh, the sweep is there. So they're just trying to spot out if they can see the vision. They're not going to spot out that ward, so they... Maybe they know it's there, but they couldn't spot it, so they can't now move Xerxes up.
Yeah, with how long it still has left on it, they should have seen a crown shot or Dreams walk forward and put it down, but they know. Norscarin has his flash, and Dreams doesn't. Dreams, crown shot, they're both very, very vulnerable, but the W hit. Does crown shot know?
I think he's aware of it. They're playing so super safe, and you can see Dream's always just sitting at the back, knowing that he can devour up the Ashe. So it should just be Xerxes backing away, which is what happens. Across the rest of the map, actually CS and numbers pretty even. There's a bit of a difference between Selfmade and Xerxes because we have seen Selfmade going for that counter jungling.
Yeah, and it's actually Selfmade putting the money from the kill and the counter jungling into a first item QSS because the weakness of the Rek'Sai is that you are going to be relatively squishing against the Skarner in a team fight. The second you ult in or you look for a knockup in one of these engagements, you're immediately going to be snapped up, pulled into the back line, and you're not going to have a good time.
That's definitely true. But definitely an early investment coming out from... Ooh, Ashe Arrow. Won't be able to land. I think if Selfmade had burrowed underneath, or used a tunnel rather, and then gone a quick kill, I think they very easily could have executed Norscarin there.
Xerxes caught out with a Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Selfmade coming in as well, but Xerxes is just going to be safe for the moment. Humanoid doing quite a lot of damage. Has built up that stinger up towards the Nash's tooth. Pyrian already finished his Ludens. Both AD carries up towards their first item. You can see Kobe just a little bit behind, but Blade of the Ruin King finished on Crown Shot already.
Selfmade looking for the flank here on towards Norscarin. This could be a fight.
Xerxes there as well. Selfmade will spot him out, and they just force him away. Both junglers have tracked the other so well this early game.
Yeah, but you can just feel the frustration, it seems, from SK as they're constantly looking for something around this top side. They don't find the kill, so they say, we're going to drop the Herald. There's 5 plates on the top lane. This is a plate gank if I've ever seen one.
And look at the mini-map right now. You'll notice that the Karma has moved up to mid to keep pressure in that lane, while the Zoe has come up towards top. No TP on Chachi means that Splyce could be in danger of losing this turret.
Featherstorm used by Kobe as he was caught out with the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. The Rift Herald will fall as well. 3 plates did go down. Chachi has got 4 in the bottom lane though, and Splyce have been able to get a little bit of an advantage out of this. SK continues to force them back to tower, down to 2 plates now, and SK should be able to get it, but I think Chachi will get it first in the bottom lane.
Yeah, Kabe's going to be trying to trade down there. Demolish will help them out a bit, but not going to be enough in the end. Crucial though, the bubble from Pyrian landing on towards Kabe forced
he's not going to get it.
Him.
SK are going to get first tower here. Karma came down just in time, and SK will get the first turret of the game.
Not the plate money, though.
Not the plate money, just outside of plate timing, but still, good stuff for them. Good rotation as well from Whirlip to stop Chachi from getting too much of that gold.
Well, you say that, but if we swap over to the gold, some may notice that there is a 1,300 gold advantage right now on Chachi over his lane opponent. He will be able to secure this tower, and he will boost that gold advantage even further. And now you're looking at Visit Chachi as one of the big win conditions for Splyce, because while SK have been struggling to find these kills, the one thing that we always say about Splyce is that they do like to team fight. And when you have a strong Kennen, especially coming into the mid game where SK will arguably be their strongest, that's something that SK have to be aware of, because those Visit Chachi flanks were something that ripped SK apart the last time that these two teams.
Yeah, especially because Splyce have so many tools to start the fight before they even need Kennen to ultimate, right? You have Xerxes and Norscarin that can lead the charge, and then Chachi can slink around and sneak into the backline. And at that point, if you already have a Devour burned, well, it's a Zoe and Ashe and a Karma. They don't really have great tools to escape from that massive AoE damage threat that Chachi's going to be bringing.
Not at all. And if you're going to put your eggs in any basket, putting them in the Chachi basket is pretty good. He's missed 1 playoffs since he joined the league. Only 1 across the course of his storied career, of course, with Unicorns of Love and then with Schalke last year as well. You guys did vote for Kobe to be featured on our POV stream this game. Be sure to check it out. It's twitch.tv/Riot Games 2 or the YouTube channel LOL Esports. In game 3, we're going to the mid lane. You can spam chat now, either Pyrian or Humanoid, to decide who gets that POV stream.
So you can pick who you want to watch in the next game. Spoiler, might be very farm heavy.
I think it's going to be fun though, because both Pyrian and Humanoid have shown us moments.
I mean, the thing that you always want to watch with players like this is how they team fight, because I think, especially champions like Zoe and Azir can be pretty challenging to work in the late game, and like the decision making that you make is definitely very valuable and something you don't always get to experience. So we definitely recommend checking that out if you're a mid laner aspiring for the top.
We talked a lot at the start of this game and during draft about how SK are on a clock and how they're trying to force the tempo, force the pace of this game a little bit. We're 16 minutes in. There's only about 600 gold between the two teams. It feels like time is running out for SK.
Yeah, the window is certainly shrinking, and the difficulty for them really comes down to the fact they just don't have the tools to start fights. The only fights that they are really looking for are the ones where they have a numbers advantage. Yes, you have tools like the Ashe Arrow, but ultimately you don't have a strong front line, and that means that if you get counter-ganked, it could be bad.
There is the arrow. arrow lands onto Norscaron, but he pops the quickness and Xerxes there in time. Dreams will devour up his jungler, Selfmade spat out to the back, but the Impale comes down, and that is a very dead crown shot. Splyce strike in the top lane.
Dreams had to use his Devour to save Selfmade, and that left his AD carry completely out to dry. Xerxes is reading Selfmade like a book this game, and it shows.
But it's exactly what you were saying, Ender. When you try to make a play with the Ashe out on SK, if the enemy jungler is there, the risk of a counter gank is huge, because you then don't have those tools to disengage and get out of that situation. So, good read there from Ender, being able to predict that one, and unfortunately for SK, it means that Splyce come out ahead once again.
Oh man, and Splyce have so many tools to stall the initial engage as well. This is one of their biggest strengths in the draft, is when they go for these compositions that punish every mistake, that can stay alive for so long. When you have the Xayah that can absorb that initial engagement, or even the Azir. Later on, we'll see that wall come in very, very clutch when Selfmade is trying to dive him and all of a sudden gets knocked away and doesn't have the ability to access him. So SK, I mean, finding the engagement without the tools is just near impossible, it seems.
And now we see Splyce starting to hit that team fighting strength as well. Oh!
T-Tours.
Yeah, T-Tours, but Norscaron gets out of it in time so he can pop the quickness. And it means, as we say, Dreams had to devour the jungler, leaving his AD carry out to drop.
Yeah, I actually really like that from Norscaron. Immediately doesn't try to run away, he just turns around and re-engages. And gotta remember, Rek'Sai very squishy this early on. The Merc Tread's really helping out as well. In the event that he does get picked off, that extra bit of tenacity really mitigates that extra CC duration. So good stuff from him. And again, want to reinforce this cannon, level 12, been silently farming off on the sideline. Did use his teleport to try and help out the top side of the map, but Spellbreaker?
Spellbinder. I got you, Betty.
It has been completed and is a very good item on the cannon as well.
You can see Splyce know that in a minute's time that Baron is going to be up. They set up some vision around it. SK trying to answer. The Sleepy Trouble Bob was landing, and Pyrion, of course, with this item and a half, almost 2 items, will do a lot of damage if it can hit those long-range Powder Stars. So it's always dangerous for Splyce because they have a few engage tools of their own. You've got the follow-up engage from the cannon, you've got Norscaron jumping in there, you've got the Impale. But if you get poked out too quickly, too much, before you can actually get onto that backline, it can be very dangerous.
Certainly can be. But the problem for SK is actually setting up to have that kind of poke.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that, or one of the situations rather, where Zoe is very strong is when you play around an objective and you kind of control the sides of that objective. So if we take a very quick look at the minimap, you can see that vision control is actually very strong. And if they were sieging up for this mid lane tower, what you want is like Zoe sitting on one of those control wards and then throwing these orbs over the wall and chunking opponents away from that objective. But every time SK try to threaten, Splyce just say, you know what, we're 3 people. If you come anywhere near, we're going to fight you.
Yep.
And SK immediately then disengage, they back away. And honestly, I think they're just waiting for a pick right now. They're waiting for Splyce to make that small mistake where they can try and catch them out. And they're not trying to force anything too big right now.
Now look at Vizicachi, he is on the flank, will be spotted out by World and potentially in trouble.
Drowsy it up. He's asleep. Selfmade's going to get the knock up, and that is a very dead cannon. SK find the pick they want. Splyce trying to force something in the mid lane, but they can't do it without their top laner.
Now that will mean Mountain Drake is up for grabs, and without Vizicachi being able to influence the map, I don't think Splyce are going to want to be contesting this objective. That's exactly the type of play we need to see here from SK, but you can see it has to be off the back of a mispositioning or a mistake from Splyce. So knowing where those players are, having the vision, as Betty has pointed out, is going to be very important for this team, and for them especially. They need to find the vision, but it's hard because they don't have a traditional tank, and that actually makes it very hard to step forward for deep wards. They can get the protective wards in the river, but not the deep ones that would allow them to push this game further and further ahead.
And now we see Splyce just waiting the game out a little bit. You've got 2 items on Kobe. You can see them all grouping up towards that mid lane. They know they have control. Chachi will go down towards a side lane once again. You can use that 1-4 split, and with the Baron live, you have to think as soon as Splyce able to find a pick, maybe even Chachi here chasing out Whirlip. There's no tower. Whirlip has nowhere to go. Shuriken will hit, and Chachi should just be able to chase him down. Whirlip trying to get the tether off, will land it, but the stun comes out as well. There's the slicing Maelstrom, and Chachi just gets the 1v1 kill. Easy enough stuff for the cannon in the side lane.
Surprised that he held on to his ultimate for so long, but I think he wanted to kind of curve Whirlip back into the lane because he knows how much mobility this champion has. And look, Humanoid coming in from behind. Decides not to go for the sliding glide, Shurima shuffle. Will instead just back away. So everyone returns back to farming.
But we're at that 2-item point now for Splyce when they can start to look for these team fights, where they can force the tempo a little bit. And we usually see Splyce go for these fights around objectives. It's why we talk about the vision around Baron so much, because what they'll do is they'll start the objective and say, okay, SK, you have to fight us now.
Exactly, especially with a composition like that. It becomes so easy to kite back into the not too impressive engage tools that SK have on their side. Now, as we do get into a little bit of a pause, I think it is worth bringing up some of the itemization choices that SK have made, because right now they have 3 QSSs on Self-Made, Crown Shot, and Dreams. But more importantly for me, I see the Banshee Veil coming in for Pyrion in the mid lane. And why I think this is so important is that if Pyrion is actually diving forward to find Big Poke with his Q, Skarner can actually just snap ult him. And even if he jumps back, he still gets yoinked right back in to those 5 members. So having the Banshee Veil to prevent that will let him play a little bit more forward with his poke.
But there are so many different ways you can pop that Banshee's Veil as well. You know, you're looking at it, you've got Kennen, you've got Xayah, you've got Rakan who can jump onto the back line. It's so easy for Splyce, if they find a single pick, to actually just catch out any member of SK. And having QSSs will mitigate Xerxes, of course. It will mitigate the quickness, it will mitigate some of that CC, but there's so much of it on the side of Splyce that actually becomes super difficult for SK to avoid all of that crowd control.
And that's where you see areas of the map that Splyce really just dominate at the moment. Currently, they're very much set up around the bottom half map, looking to play a little bit slower, maybe focus on the next Drake, because honestly, Splyce don't have to push the envelope. We saw in the last game they had control for a lot of it, and ultimately, they threw around the Baron buff. They went for a call too early without the ability to turn and fight. So in this game, they're not going to make the same mistake. The coaching staff, had a conversation with them between these 2 games, said, look, we're going to take it a little slower. We're going to play exactly how this composition can dominate.
And I think that's where some of the veterancy of the team and of the players on the team come into effect as well. Splyce have made 6 playoffs since joining the LEC, only surpassed by teams like G2 and Fnatic, and combined that the players on this team have 17 playoff appearances. SK have 1. Only Whirlip has made it to playoffs on that team before. So you have to think that Splyce are a little bit more used to being in this sort of situation, a little bit more used to being 1 game down and being able to come back fighting.
Yeah, and this is a team, too, that is traditionally very successful in playoffs at contesting against the top teams. Last spring, they were able to get 3rd place, and even in the past, they've gone against Schalke last summer. They pushed them to 5 games. Schalke ended up going to the final, so we expect good things out of this team.
And you expect long series as well. They've gone to 5 games 4 of the times they've been in playoffs. They're only 1-3 in those performances overall, so they've only won 1 of those 5-game series. But the hope always is that we get a good 5-game series today.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit, now that we're back into the game, about how the map is set up right now. And if you have a quick look at the minimap, you'll notice that Splyce actually invested a decent amount of vision towards the bot side of the map. And usually, the reason why you do this is to allow your split pusher to push freely, because it then gives them a lot of information around where the enemy team is and what they're trying to do. But what this has done is it's given priority to SK around the Baron area. And then, for some reason, Splyce have actually moved their Kennen out of that lane and then moved them up towards the top side. So they invested this vision that they haven't actually utilized, and it's actually just given SK a lot more control around the objective that really matters.
And that's why now they've moved, like, Chachi pushes out that lane, then tries to get some vision control if you can. Better to use here by Xerxes as SK group up as 5 in the mid lane. Chachi does have a flank position, has the ultimate as well. Just about to come off cooldown with that flash up as well.
Someone needs to catch the bot wave now. It's just being left by itself. Chachi will now be sent. And I do feel like right now the lane assignments for Splyce are a little bit all over the shop. They're just reacting to whatever SK is doing. And SK are just quite patient. They're taking their time. You can see that Ashe is now collecting that full wave up on towards the top side of the map. They've had priority on mid, and they've slowly been chipping away that tower. And it feels like the Splyce are actually, SK are moving Splyce how they want to around the map right now.
But what does this do for SK? What does this allow them to do? What does this open up? Because it's all well and good to say they're moving them where they want, but what does SK actually gain out of this?
Well, in an ideal world, it would secure them a mid-tier 1, but on top of that, it's just getting more farm onto their carries. And we can remember, we talked about, even though in a 4-5v5 later on to the game, yes, on paper, you would expect Splyce to have the advantage, but a Zoe in the late game, an Ashe in the late game, they aren't slout, they aren't useless, which which means getting more gold, more resources onto them, while forcing Splyce to lose resources, simply a matter of just farming a side lane, can actually be a lot in terms of experience, gold, and overall a benefit and a small advantage that you may not always notice.
It certainly can. Now, for SK, I think the biggest struggle for them is going to be, yes, they have the back line that can do it in the late game, but they don't have the front line because Tom Kench doesn't want to be sitting there. Look for Chachi because he is on the side. Don't think he's going to
top.
Yeah, they're not going to look for the play. They keep collapsing on this mid lane. I think it's just a battle for pressure at the moment. Because Chachi shows up here, they can now walk in, put down a control word, get some more control. But again, it's not about Splyce necessarily forcing anything because they can just wait. It's totally fine for them. What they want to have is vision so that SK can't force on them. They do have him out, by the way.
Oh, Humanoid literally just went back to base.
Humanoid's gone back to base, doesn't have the teleport. Chachi does, but now Splyce will spot this out. 6,000 HP on the Baron. Teleport coming in behind by Chachi. Maybe they'll take the fight afterwards. Scaven jumps in. A massive charm. Here comes Zerse as well. There's blast go for him. Joe splashes in. Pyrion gets the Baron, but here comes Chachi slicing through SK. Dreams use the thick skin to survive, and we go into a little bit of a freeze frame as Selfmade knocked out on the backside. The sleep lands on Humanoid, but he'll cleanse it away. SK, 3 members strong. 4 will all get out. Can Dreams survive as well as Scaven jumps forward? Yes, SK get 4 members out.
But that was a massive slicing maelstrom that killed nobody. SK walk away with 4 members alive and a secured Baron buff. And Medic, we spoke so much about what does all this vision gain? What is it going to result in? It results in a Baron for SK that Splyce had absolutely no answer for.
SK had to pull the trigger right there. They knew they got the Mountain Drake earlier. That single secure allowed them to burst down the Baron quickly enough. And I love that you mentioned the Chachi ultimate because no, it didn't do any damage, and it's because every single member on the side of SK has some form of MR.
Xerxes, no flash to jump on the back line here. SK just poking out as much as they can. A little bit reminiscent of game 1. We saw Splyce fail around the Baron there. They've done it once again as SK push in towards that middle lane. Double cannon wave. Pyrion just landing those sleepy trouble bubbles from the side, poking out, and Splyce have to back away once again.
And you talked about earlier how we can use this Zoe. This is a perfect example now. They have the pressure, they have the super minions, just noticing how obnoxious this Zoe can be in these sieges. Even though Crown Shrine has no mana, it doesn't matter. Splyce can't defend, they lose everything. So, Ender, talk us through this fight.
Yeah, so right off the bat, Norscairn, I think, goes in a little bit early because he's trying to just stop them from taking down the Baron too quickly. It is a Zoe that picks up, and then look at this ultimate. It just does no damage right here. Dreams gets a massive shield on the back half of it, and while Humanoid is able to kill Selfmade on the other side, his damage was not present, and that meant that 4 members of SK could survive.
And SK now pushing down towards this bottom lane. Like, they are the team that have made the proactive calls. They're the team that seem to just be that little bit more secure in themselves, a little bit more secure in their players here. And they're the team with the rookies, remember, you know, Crown Shot and Selfmade came up from Mad Lions, who won EU Masters last split. Whirlib was on that team as well. Dreams has only played for Mysterious Monkeys in the LEC. Pyrion's been bouncing all around the world before kind of making his home in SK. But SK, the team that are coming out on top right now.
And it's one of those things where coming into this series, something that we discussed was that we felt Splyce as a team are not actually the best when it comes to setting up proactive plays. Usually the way in which they set it up is it's a little all over the shop, and sometimes it's not as clean as they want it. And whereas SK, they're a little haphazard in their setup. So they just kind of go. They're very gung-ho, very active. They're like, oh, if we see an opportunity, we'll go for it.
All or nothing.
But when you look at this game, Splyce, even though they had a big advantage, it felt like they were the ones being controlled around the map. And it was SK that have actually been very patient in their play. They tried to force a couple of fights, and they didn't go their way. So they actually then slowed the game down, and they've just been very meticulous in how they've controlled the map. And it's very surprising to have these rookies control these experienced veterans in Splyce as well as they have.
SK will force up towards this top lane tower now. You can see how Pyrion using the terrain to get those sleepy trouble bubbles back towards the back line. Humanoid had pushed down bot, now has rejoined his team, but Splyce a couple of thousand gold in the hole as SK continue to use this ban buff. 10 seconds remaining on it. They've got a lot out of it already.
Yep, and Splyce, they can't force a fight. There's no flash on Kennen, Skarner, or the Rakan, so it's very difficult for them to find the 5v5 without those key spells.
It's also really difficult to just engage on a karma. This champion is so obnoxious. There's the Tom Kench as well, and look at Xerxes. It's like, what can he do?
How'd you get anywhere near the Ash? Just slows you consistently. Norscaron trying to jump into the backline, but already Xerxes down to basically no HP. Norscaron's still alive. Humanoid using the soldiers as best he can alongside that Sundis, but he's going to get chased off. Void Rush straight into the back. Immediately pulled in with the Impale, but Selfmade goes golden with the cleanse. The QS.
Still alive.
He's still alive and he gets out. Feather Storm used from Kabe almost burst down in one, but all of Splyce are just limping back towards their fountain as SK break into their base.
SK lost the Baron, but they don't even need it. They take down the inhibitor. They have a minion wave in the top lane as well. They're not going to make too much use out of that one, but with another Baron coming up in a minute and a half, SK have all the momentum.
SK are defying expectations right now. In game one, they looked like that they managed to steal away a victory from Splyce, but in game two, they are earning this victory fair and square. And even though they were at a deficit, they've done a fantastic job of reclaiming control, breaking into the base, and now it is Splyce who are on the back foot.
And as much as we said, you know, Splyce are the better late game teamfighting comp, this is the power of an Ashe, this is the power of a Zoe if you can make just these slow catches.
And without the flash on Xerxes, it becomes near impossible. Norscaron tries to find the engagement, but there's a Tom Kench right there. They can just keep going for the slows, and this one, I mean, I feel you, buddy, with the ultimate in here from Selfmade.
He survives.
He does survive. Well, ultimately, he does, and this bubble is so clutch here on towards Kabe. Now, Selfmade pops the Q a little bit early. He actually allows Kabe to survive because the Paddle Star was coming in from Pyrian. Had he not broken the sleep, that would have been a kill, but it's still a massive win for SK.
Now, Xerxes has the flash, Chachi has the flash, Norscaron has the flash as well. This, you have to feel, is Splyce's final stand. Baron up in 30 seconds. They'll try and get some vision around it, but if SK can continue to play the way they have been, Splyce don't stand a chance.
I mean, what's really important to remember is that still, on paper, in the 5v5, Splyce should have the advantage. They have so many engaged tools. Azir is level 16, Cannon is level 16. Like, this is a bread and butter team fight composition. It's just about finding that fight. And if they can find it, Splyce still have a shot at winning this game.
Yeah, so SK need to play around the minion waves. They have an inhibitor in mid lane. That's why they're all up here on the top side of the map. But keep in mind, there are flashes on all the primary engaged tools of Splyce, and they want to fight.
Norscaron flashes in, lands the charm onto the devoured crown shot. Here comes Chachi as well. The slicing mouse from straight onto the back line already. He's taken down one. It's the shutdown. Void Rush used by Humanoid's going to push well and back into the team. And Splyce have found the fight they needed. They found the comeback. And it's only Pyrian who walks away alive.
Splyce had the spells, and they found their fight with Baron up. They want to look for one more kill. Pyrian is on the run, but hey, Splyce, there's some speed boys.
There's not many places Pyrian can go from here. Sleepy Trouble Ball will connect. The flash away will get him to safety, but with Baron live, you have to think Splyce should secure this objective.
And we were just talking about it. Splyce still have that team fight comp. On paper, if they found the fight, they could come out on top, and they pull it off. Now the Baron is in their eyes, and all that's left for SK is if Pyrian can interrupt. Can he be obnoxious enough to stop it? But with the arrival of Humanoid, I don't think they will be.
I have to think Pyrian can't do much here. Norscaron just tanking up the Paddle Stars. 5,000 HP left on the Baron. Going to be secured. Teleport actually used here. Crown Shot coming in. The Baron does fall, and immediately Crown Shot runs away. Realizes that he can't do much more here. Just trying to keep Humanoid around for the second, but SK, only 3 kills in this game. It was very much in their favor a moment ago, but Splyce did this and stopped them in their tracks.
They find the engaged. Norscaron doesn't use the W there until the flash comes through. They're able to single him off, and Chachi in the back line. No one can touch him. There's no peel left remaining. Selfmade is able to trade 1 for 1, but these fights cannot work. The 5v5 is just not going to happen with SK. Look, we said post 30 minutes, SK cannot win a fight. They would have to have a ludicrous gold lead. I've got news for you. It's bang on even, and that means Splyce are winning.
And what's really crucial as well is that we've talked a lot, like, the reason why SK were winning so much is because those summoner spells weren't available. The flash is crucial. We talked about how difficult it can be to engage on a Karma, but now Splyce have time with the Baron to just wait for those summoners to be available again for looking for the next fight. Wave clear from the side of SK is still strong, so I feel like Splyce need to force something, but again, it's difficult for them. So you're still evaluating if SK can just stall out this Baron buff and wait.
Arrow used by Crown Shot onto Norscaron, but he'll just jump away. It's a sizable level advantage on the Splyce side here. Humanoid already level 18.
So Vizichachi was just about to go back to base. There was a ward that he could TP from behind, but keep your eyes on Vizichachi. If a fight is going to happen, it's going to be the cannon.
Here comes Cannon waiting in the bushes. A control ward there. Crown Shot's off towards the top side of this, but Chachi decides he doesn't want to go in. Pings came out from SK. They were defensive. They were aware that that could happen. And once again, both teams just back away. The line of scrimmage is reformed.
The best part is that both teams are so hungry to fight because SK know the clock is against them. It feels like their time has run out. And Splyce, they've got a 100% crit chance now on towards Kabe. Humanoid almost has his Rabadon's death cap. This team is built for the 5v5 and they want it.
Selfmade heading down towards the bot side of the map. The Tom Kench ultimate was used as well. See if they could catch off Vizichachi. And that might be the window that Splyce used to siege onto this tier 1 tower and finally take it down. But they cannot wait for it. Oh, okay, finally they'll be able to get past Marion and Warlord.
34 minutes.
Took them a really long time.
But
Their Baron is now about to run off. Well, they've still got a minute left. Let's see what else they can get off the back of this.
with the Sun Disc there, it's just going to help them push up mid. Skarner's actually gone on towards the side lane here. Xerxes trying to push that in. Not usually the lane assignments we would see in this sort of situation. Of course, Chachi has the teleport, so usually he'd be one splitting in a side lane. Kobe down to half HP already just from crown shot, using that ranger's focus.
The reason Xerxes is top is because the other four members are so pivotal to the team fight. Honestly, underneath that Azir tower, they could probably look for the 4v5 against the weak engage of SK. Still, I would like to see Xerxes group with the team. They may just be waiting for the flashes to come back up, because until then, Splyce they can't force.
Tower down to a third of its health. SK still able to defend, able to hold on for the moment. The inhibitor, of course, has respawned in the mid lane for Splyce, so no more super minions pushing in there. That Sun Disc going to expire pretty soon. Chachi catches out self mid, but he'll just use the tunnel network to get himself back towards his own base. No scaring, chunked out there, but able to survive with the battle dance.
Splyce really struggling to break past the defense of SK.
We're looking at almost 4 items on the Azir, though, with that Rabadon's Death Cloud coming up. You've got 3.5 items on Chachi. Very powerful players here on the side of Splyce.
I mean, the thing is, that is very important, right? And this is great for Splyce. And you're like, okay, level 18 Azir, wonderful, really happy for you. But if they can never use it, those items don't mean anything, right? And even though you can be a full item behind on Zoe, if she hits you and you don't hit her, fun fact, doesn't matter what items you have, she's gonna win that trade.
She hits Kobe, the sleep comes out, Kobe uses the QSS, but immediately the arrow comes out. No scaring with the charm, the shutdown! And as you predicted, Venius, if Zoe hits you and you don't hit her, there's not much, but here comes Chachi! Onto the backline, takes down one, Humanoid shuffles in, Empyrean flashes away, Dreams will be the second to follow. It's a 3v3 now as Whirl of Empyrean just back away. Selfmade does have a flank position if they want to go in, but they decide against it.
Both bot lanes have been wiped out. Humanoid wants to find the engagement. The rest of Splyce right there behind them. There are no objectives yet on the map, but they're still going at it.
The rookie mid on the side of Splyce could sense glory there in a moment, but Whirlib, with his experience, was able to flash away just in time. 37 minutes in, there's nothing in this game, and we'll re-see that fight once again.
So the first thing to note is the position on the mini-map. A lot of damage goes down onto Kobe, but because this is a 3v3, SK can look to make this fight. The problem is that they get stuck in the ensuing fight, allowing time for Vizichachi to then join. And the moment the cannon arrives, this is where the damage comes through, and this is where SK start to fall apart.
We talk about it so often. Kennen engaging from the front of the fight can't do anything, but when he finds the flank, you just have no other option against it. You cannot escape from that massive field here, and sitting on 4 items currently, he's been the player sort of gone unnoticed, but you see how much damage he's done over the course of the game. He's really stepping up in the fights.
Empyrean flashes away from the shuffle there out of Humanoid. Elder Dragon up in 4 seconds. Baron up in just half a minute as well. Both these teams just, they continue to fight moment after moment. SK going to step into darkness here as they face check the bush. Chachi still has the flank position. Ultimate just about up as well. Elder Dragon down to about 3,000 HP. They're trying to catch out Chachi, but the Elder Dragon solo. There's a flash. Chachi jumps onto the back line. The quickness used as well. Dreams is assassinated. Crown Shot trying to survive on the back. Humanoid shuffles away with the Void Rush from Selfmade. Chasing him. Selfmade takes one. Period goes down as well, but now it's all a Crown Shot. Kobe comes in from the side. The Blade Caller pulls him back. It's a triple for Kobe, but now he's in a 2v1 situation. Selfmade and Whirlib against Kobe, the only man left alive on the side of Splyce, and SK somehow come out on top.
And while this whole fight was going down, minions were pushing in the top side. Right now, Whirlib is shoving up that middle lane. All Selfmade has to do is stop Kobe from getting back to base. There's no ultimate, no flash on towards Kobe. Selfmade might be able to one-shot him if he can get on top, but he can just wait. He doesn't have to find the engage.
Selfmade is hunting He's trying to do what he can. You can see Whirlip up in the top lane right now, working through these objectives, but he recognizes the respawn time is not going to take the gamble. Will back away instead. The pings are coming down towards the Baron. They want to get some vision. But let's have a look at how this fight actually played out. This is the best case scenario for Splyce, because they're like forcing SK into a 5v5, and Visage actually finds the flank, and you look at all this damage, but the crucial thing is Crown Shot doesn't die, and Selfmade gets onto Humanoid. So much of the damage just disappears.
And he's also able to get out of the Skarner ultimate. He has the QSS and buffers the rest of the CC with the ultimate coming in from the other members of that team. So he follows up on towards Humanoid, and with that, they get the Baron.
SK get the Baron, but already Splyce have gone across towards the Elder. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow used from long range doesn't connect onto anyone. Elder Dragon started up. SK, they want this fight. Chachi has the teleport, but he's up in the top lane right now. 6,000 HP left on the Baron. Elder Dragon, sorry, it's already down so low. Norscaven tries to stop him. That's the smite coming out from Xerxes. They'll secure it. Void Rush used by Selfmade, but he's going to be sacrificed. And SK will take the trade. Elder for the Baron.
A little bit of greed there from SK. They wanted to secure both objectives when they didn't need to. This will give Splyce more fire to their already strong team fighting. And now with a numbers advantage, they can actually just look to push into the base.
Self-made, so confident right there. He went straight in the back. Don't know about that one, buddy. Not having the ultimate gonna make it much harder to siege, but against the Baron without one of your own, it seems like both of these buffs are just going to neutralize each other. Baron buff will be on the side of SK for 40 seconds extra, and maybe they can do something with that.
The only reason why I think that won't be the case is if Splyce can be proactive and pull the trigger. They have flashes available. They can look to just dive. And when they have a numbers advantage, they are this strong, there's no reason why they should be afraid of doing so.
Inhibitor tower goes down in the bottom lane. Chachi pushing in mid. 6 seconds left on Selfmade. He'll be back with his team in just a second. Of course, won't have the Baron buff, so won't be able to repel waves by himself. Splyce could just go for the engage. Norscaven, his flash almost up. The quickness still there in a second as well. Inhibitor takes a little bit of a chunk as Kobe forced back. Crown Shot down to half HP. Xerxes popped the Predator, looking for the flash impale if he can get it, but they just force all of SK back, and they take the Inhibitor in the bottom lane at the 41-minute mark.
Good decision-making there from Splyce. They knew that even with the Baron buff,
Goes in with the charm. Kobe was waiting around the corner. Norscaven down quite low, but already Pyrion has fallen. And Splyce tried to pull the trigger. They thought maybe SK would overstep, and only Pyrion did.
The burn from the Elder Dragon finishing off Pyrion when he was in the belly of Tahm Kench. And now once again, it's a power play here for Splyce. 5 versus 4 on the map. There's flash on Chachi, flash on Xerxes, flash on Norscaven. When they have those spells up, Splyce have not lost a team fight. This is their chance once again.
they bring in the mid wave. They have the numbers advantage. While the ulti from Norscaven isn't available, it is from Chachi. I thought that was going to be it. He decided not to go for it. A couple of flashes still available on the side of SK, but they're showing that respect. They're backing off.
The Devour used as well, though, already by Dreams. Crown Shot doesn't have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow up. Kobe will just pull back the feathers and continues to clear out the wave. The Baron buff up for another minute as the Elder Dragon just about to fall off. But this is Splyce's home. The late game is their friend. Team fighting is their friend. We've seen it so consistently across the course of the split. No one can beat Splyce if they can get you to the 35-minute mark. And once again, we see just how powerful they can be in the late game.
I mean, what SK are demonstrating is that they can. And the fact that Selfmade was so pivotal in that final fight around the Elder to keep SK in this game was just a really good example of why he is considered such a good player. Now, this is where the engage starts. Norscaven goes in because he sees that the ultimate from Zoe was used, and as you mentioned earlier, Ender, the burn from the Elder Dragon was enough to secure the kill, even in the belly of Tahm Kench, but they couldn't really convert it into much else. Wasn't sure if the rest of SK were really on the same, at Splyce rather, were on the same page with regards to that fight, so there's no real follow-up. It just means that a lot of the base has been exposed for SK, and now we have a very open map. We're getting to the point in the game where gold matters significantly less, macro means less, and it's more about just execution.
I mean, it's who's going to win in the 5v5, right? And I have to give so much props here towards SK because we did not have a lot of faith in them, but they've been using Selfmade on the rec side to assassinate backlines and kiting around with this Karma and the Tahm Kench, the protection for their carries. By all means, this is not an easy composition to execute for so many rookies in some of their first playoff games ever. This is not something that you expect a lot of veteran teams to pull off, let alone SK making their return towards the LEC. And they're doing it with style.
And it's funny because if you looked at a typical solo queue game, you'd look at the scoreline, you'd look at the items, and you'd think, Splyce have won this game.
Yeah.
How does SK even do it? And the reality is we've been asking this question throughout this game, thinking this is going to be difficult for SK, they need this to happen, and every time, somehow they make it happen, and that's why they've kept this game going. Now, the big objectives of Baron and Elder are respawning soon, and they're going to need another miracle play to turn this game in their favor, because right now it's Splyce to have full control over the map.
With the inhibitor down in the bottom lane, those super minions still pushing in. Crownshot had to answer them. But now they can just wait for the Baron. Splyce, all they do is they push up this vision line and then they just wait in the SK jungle. Look at this darkness for SK. There's one ward in the back of Baron Pit that is alive for them, but that will be cleared out very rapidly by Splyce when they decide to go for that Nasher.
And coming in to this culminating moment, because both of these objectives spawning, this feels like the end of the game. The team that can get one or even both should have all the opportunities they need to close this one out. And every single player has their flash up. This team fight is going to be so pivotal. Everyone has the chance to find the plays, to make the outplays. Throw it all out of the window. We've seen SK win fights with this composition. We've seen Splyce dominate in the 5v5s. The series we were seeing today, we were promised insane team fighting, and that is exactly what we've gotten. And in 10 more seconds, we're going to get it again.
Yeah. So, the ball is in Splyce's court. They're the ones in control right now. Will they approach the Baron?
Oh, no scaling caught.
Oh,
the arrow, they're using everything. He dodges away from it with the battle dance.
Look at Chachi, he's not on a single ward. If he can find the chunk of SK all funneled in towards this corridor, the ward will spot him early.
4,000 HP left on the Baron. Selfmace jumps into that pit as well, but here comes Chachi. Northgaren jumping onto the back line. There's the slicing Maelstrom. Period already down, but Northgaren falls as well. Selfmade on the back line. Crownshot still alive. Selfmade able to escape towards the back of the pit. Will use that tunnel network, and Humanoid down to about 30 HP. Selfmade's still alive. Kobe goes down, gets one side as he takes down Dreams, and the Baron's still alive though. Humanoid, Crownshot jumps in, shuffles it back, pushes him away, and that is the Baron going over to Splyce as well. This should be the game, and it should be Splyce's victory.
And there are super minions inside the base of SK as well. This is going to be the waltz for the finish. Splyce have everything they need to finish it out. Chachi will teleport in, will finish off this inhibitor, and Splyce want to even it up.
Splyce did everything they need to in that final fight, with only 2 members standing in their way. There's little SK can do to stop them. Splyce looking to equalize this series.
They take down the 2 inhibitors, and now it's just the Nexus towers in their sights. 10 seconds on Pyrian, 10 on Dreams as well, but they're not going to be up in time to save SK's base. Splyce just looking to equalize the series here. Selfmade takes down 1, then he gets popped into his GA. The second Nexus tower will fall, and Splyce will strike back and tie us up at 1-1.
A lot of props need to be given to SK to how they played out this game, but we said it was a timer for SK. Now, admittedly, they took that timer for way later than you would expect.
Smash the clock, like it doesn't even matter.
But in the end, the timer ran out. Splyce's comp was too strong, and around that Baron area, with so much darkness for Splyce to play with, there was little they could do. And we said it so many times, if Vizichachi gets that flank, it's pretty much over. He found the perfect flank. Selfmade couldn't steal away the Baron. Everything came together for Splyce, and they pick up their first win.
I'm just blown away at how much this series is delivering for me, because when you see this, we had so many expectations coming in for both of these teams, whether it was the late game scaling of Splyce, the early game performance of SK, and these teams said, no, we have some elements of that, but it's ultimately just going to come down to individual outplays within the team fights. In game 1, in game 2, that was the key, and it's just going to keep getting better from here.
That is the hope. And to break down on how Splyce
Wow.
Words are difficult. To break down how Splyce bounced back, let's leave it to the analyst desk.
Well, thank you very much, Medic. And you know, I don't blame you that you're looking for your words after, honestly, 2 games of absolute craziness and very entertaining games to watch from the desk and probably from at home, but incredibly stressful for the teams playing. And perhaps that is also why they are so chaotic. I don't know. How much of this was, this game specifically, Splyce playing to their win conditions, and how much was it just also still nerves on both sides and mistakes?
I think the comp from SK was very difficult to play against. when you're against so much poke and range and pick, someone is going to get caught out eventually. Someone is going to take that big karma Q in the face before an important fight, and we're going to be like, oh, what are you doing? You know, that's so dumb. But when you're in the moment there and there's like 3 big skill shots flying your way, you are going to get hit by something. So I don't want to call it like people inting or playing really poorly in that case. I just think the SK comp was really hard to play against because of the long range.
The reality is like, this is the type of League of Legends that fans love to watch when it does come down to like fight to fight to fight. And we said it last game, I'll say it the same thing. Like, you're looking for really minute execution consistency or mistakes that will basically determine the entire game. What I thought was cool about SK's composition is that with Karma, Ashe, and Zoe kind of as your core, because it's about the poke, it's about the range, it's about the pick, with Zoe and Karma, you're constantly throwing out skill shots. Versus Splyce's comp, which was about big timers, flash timers. It's about the ability to hard engage, to have the big like wombo combo death ball. So the uptime for SK to always be in control of tempo of this game, because they can constantly be throwing out Qs, constantly be looking for plays, whereas Splyce were like, okay, is flash up, are all of our ultimates here, let's try to make a play, and if it didn't work, it was like another hard reset of 3 to 5 minutes while you're waiting for those cooldowns, and that's why this game felt like the chains were very slowly moving in Splyce's favor.
Yeah, you've summarized that very well, because I did think every time, you know, even when Splyce was ahead, you just saw SK pushing because they have the capability. They always have uptime on their spells. On the other side, Splyce has to wait. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of replays, and I want to start very early on. Proactive play from Splyce on that bottom lane tower, and again, you said it, the ults were up, the abilities were up, and they just go in. I don't know what Crownshot was doing exactly, but, you know, we're going to let it fly.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's making a mistake here by obviously walking into the Rakan ult instead of trying to walk back towards his turret, so he ends up also going down. And Selfmade, while he's trying to save the day, eventually will just die as well and get 3 kills over. While it's a TP trace, you're not even getting an advantage there. But the reason I think this replay was important, because it actually meant that Splyce's comp that was not supposed to be very strong early managed to get a bit of a head start. I was really looking at Ashe Tahm Kench, Ashe hits level 6, you try and play with Rek'Sai to that lane, see if you can force them out. It's hard to kill them because the Xayah ulti and then Rakan can dodge away from the arrow as well, but at least try and get priority with Selfmade coming to the lane. But then this play happened, and it just meant that Selfmade didn't really have anywhere else to go, because you're not ganking for the Karma top lane. Nothing is happening there. Azir sitting mid with Cleanse, you're not really killing him either. So it was only around that lane if I wanted SK to like snowball. And they actually did fall a bit behind, and it looked like Splyce were just slowly gonna just gain more and more control.
I think it was a smart adaptation then from Splyce. They identified this is the only place where the plays can be made, so we're going to shut that down. That gives us freedom. But as you say then, it should be easy sailing from there. But that's where SK surprised me in this first replay we're going, or second replay we're going to look at, is where they take the Baron in a time where it wasn't opportune to do it, and they just take that opportunity and put themselves back in the front.
Because Differential is introducing this concept of like playing reactive. You know, like the lane should have gone this way, but there was a gank. Well, guess what? There was an early Mountain Dragon, which meant the possibility of a 24-minute Baron is suddenly what you need to be reactive to. So this entire series has been both teams like kind of reading moment to moment, and then who is going to make the smarter snap decision.
And again, the Mountain Drake is so crucial to highlight, because we are literally talking 1 to 2 seconds faster that you kill this Baron. If that's a little bit slower, Chachi is in that Baron pit before Baron dies. You have Azir, who's even closer to the fight, and then it's not one person only dying and everyone else running away. Then it's probably 3, 4, maybe 5. And then we'll be like, oh, what a horrible Baron call, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of seconds, and that's the thing that Mountain Drake will do now for a lot of teams, is it opens up for the earlier Baron potential. And in this case, SK actually pulled it off very, very well and got out in time.
Yeah, the clarity of mind, I think, for them in that point in time when you're playing a playoff series, I think was very impressive. But from there, it becomes a bit muddy from me as well. Just to looking at who got the advantage and how they got it, I'm not exactly sure. But I do know that those timers you guys were talking about, that Kennen, when
He's flash.
Then it is donezo for SK.
Because that's the thing, this game goes on so long that Splyce gets so many rotations through their flash summoners. And you just have to think, it is Karma, it is Ashe, it is Zoe. How are you ever going to get close to this team for Azir to do damage? Humanoid noise, if I get in this fight and if I hit them, they will explode. But SK were just basically like hand on forehead, just keeping them far away.
And then you might think, oh, why does Azir and Rakan just dive in every single time to the back line and try and get a carry? Well, because Dreams is actually playing insanely well. And every single time that one of his carries are about to get picked off, instantly he gets the Devour in just in time. Good positioning. He's not the one getting caught out. So it's really difficult for someone like Humanoid to actually do what he wanted. Because he wants to stand there and just auto-attack, but he always has to run towards the enemy because they keep running backwards and they keep firing stuff left and right. And some of these SK fights, a bit like the first game, ends up with like people completely splitting up and you're shooting people from like 3 angles. And it seems really frustrating to play against. And I think the Elder Drake fight that we have, it will actually show this as well.
Yeah, it will. And of course, this was in the end then the final fight almost because Splyce gets that Elder Drake, then has enough power. And remember, SK went to Baron just before. And that is when Splyce starts this Elder Drake fight that we're going to take a look at right now. And yeah, this is eventually also a misplay by SK because do they have to challenge this?
This is the crazy self-made play.
It is.
Yeah.
Look at Selfmade. Please look at Selfmade. He gets in, knocks up Humanoid while he was taking damage from the Elder Drake and stops him from dealing damage when his carries, while SK's carries were actually getting CC'd.
And that was one of those situations where, like, SK should not have come out of the fight as well as they did. This should have been Splyce just, like, rolling over them, but because Selfmade made such a clutch play, it denied the damage from Asir, and then a situation where they didn't have to burn Flash, where Splyce finally got the team fight set up, Selfmade was like, we will hold at least this one last time.
But they didn't.
They didn't.
Well, they survived that one.
They they eventually ended up losing that Elder Drake. Obviously, they lost a bunch of turrets with it. And then when Baron spawned, Splyce started. And you might have long range and kite, but if it's the enemy team starting the objective, then you have to run to them.
Yeah.
And then Splyce can be like, okay, now you're coming to us. We actually have way more damage than you have in these fights, as long as our Azir and our Xayah can hit people.
Can hit people in.
And okay, Cannon Flash was ready as well. For
Yeah, that's usually pretty useful.
I think
you
you literally said if he buys Deathcap here, he has Flash, the game is over. And that's
over.
And case in point. Now, as we are now all squared up, 1-1, I did want to take a look at the key matchups. We talked about bot and jungle, and I wanted to compare specifically Selfmade and Kobbe because I think it still boils down to this, but tell me if I'm wrong. I heard you mention Dreams.
Yeah, I
But
think,
for me, the single person that has made the most impact is Selfmade, and the single person that had to carry also late was Kobbe, although they have more members that
Yeah.
are important in those team fights.
I'm not, at least in the last game, looking at Kobbe specifically as like the big hero from the team. I think he did his job again, as he will always do. But I'm looking more at engages from Noskaran when you're against this like kite long range comp, and then also Visicharchi and Cannon. Early on, he got caught out with that Mountain Drake that went over to SK, which ended up being important. But then later on, he managed to find good flanks when he had flashes up, and that ended up being really crucial for them.
Talking to Trevor backstage, I think he made a really good point in the idea that when he looks at the Splyce roster, there wasn't anyone who really jumped out as kind of like the clutch playmaker. Like, you expect everyone to be clean, to do their jobs, and just have like the methodical, clean wins. But on SK, you know who your clutch guy is going to be. And this time around, it's also Dreams who's stepping up. And I think when your game times are this long, when it comes down to this many team fights, you're looking for those clutch, miracle performances where some guy is just the massive difference maker. So
Yeah, but when you need a miracle, it means that, you know, you can't get it in another way. And I think that's how we went into this day, thinking it's going to be the self-made factor alone. Now, where are we now from a point of view of each of these teams? Because if you're SK, you're thinking, I won game 1 even though I was the underdog, and I challenged in a game where I had no business challenging anymore once Splyce got ahead. On Splyce's side, you're probably coming in thinking, well, that first game we lost that, we didn't expect that, and that second one we were also close to it. So what is the future here? What is game 3 going to bring us?
A lot of team fights.
A lot of
I
team
can
fights.
guarantee
I like
that one, because none of the teams are getting big early leads against each other, and that's just not the way they like to play the game. So I think we might see even more focus on drafting scaling, just because you know that you're eventually going to get there. Like we had the Azir pick in this situation. You don't pick that to try and win early game at all. You're literally just farming for late game.
I also think it makes a difference for Splyce. The fact that their veterans are having, not necessarily Chachi, I think his performance has been very up and down, but Kobbe is pretty solid outside, dying in lane a couple of times. You know, he's looking good on his KDA. He's sitting, he's doing his job. The dominoes are being set up for him. He's knocking it down. For him to go backstage with a very young roster and be like, this is fine, everything's going according to plan, have faith in me, give me a scaling ADC, let's see him late game, we've got this, guys. Versus SK, where we don't necessarily know what they're thinking in the situation. These are very long games. This is a best of 5. This is a roster that has never been put in this type of pressure situation. So to lose a game like that, to try to reset mental, I think is a big factor.
I think though, we can't talk much about mental because we don't know what's happening with the teams. But I think for SK, like going into it, if they were a little bit as the underdogs, but I think them being
fully.
Yeah, I mean they were the underdogs, right? But I think for them being 1-on-1, having 2 extremely close games, I think they're feeling great actually. I think for SK, he's focused. This is him being very focused, right? But I think for SK, you just like why we should not be scared of these guys at all.
At all,
Like,
yeah.
we have actually been playing fairly well. We have already picked up a game. Just keep doing what we're doing
Maybe
now.
you pick up another one, and then boom, one more.
So yeah, I think without going into like, are they nervous, are they happy, or whatever, but I think like they've already shown that they can beat Splyce.
Let me summarize it. We can't say who's going to win. It's really anyone's game still.
But we
Yes.
did say that, you know, if SK go 2-0 up, we don't necessarily know what that means for Splyce, but we all felt that we knew what it meant for SK. That they would have a lot of momentum. I like the word that you used, scared. It feels like SK are not scared of Splyce. They are actually going for these clutch plays. You know, it's Crown Shot flashing over walls. It's Dreams being in the right moment at the right time. It's Selfmade making sure that he's finding the correct target. So I love that fact that we're not seeing rookies crack under the pressure of playoffs, that they are kind of stepping to Splyce and trying to meet them punch for punch, blow for blow in these 5v5s.
Yeah, I have to concur. It's absolutely fantastic to watch as well. A very spicy series on our hands. Splyce and SK, they're tied after 2 games. We'll be right back with Game 3.